What's going on YouTube? So there are very few vehicles left in the US that can truly be called affordable, but we just spent the last week with one of them. This is the Chevy Trax, which starts out at less than $22,000 and the top trim at about 25 grand. So is this an insane value? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Let's kick things off under the hood. So the Trax is powered by a 1.2 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, making 137 horsepower. It's paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission, power is routed to the front wheels only, and the combined fuel economy is 30 mpg.
Now, the base price of the Trax is $21,700, and if you're looking to buy one or any vehicle, we'd encourage you to check out carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, of course, we're going to take it out for a spin to show you the performance of this powertrain, but first we need to go ahead and shut up the hood, take a look at the stylish exterior as well as the value-packed interior.
Now, as far as the exterior design is concerned, one of the nice things about the Trax is that you don't have to give up style to get an affordably priced model. Chevy actually offers several different versions which are quite stylish, including the sporty RS trim levels and what you're looking at right here today, which is the mid-level LT trim, but we also have the Midnight Edition package. So that's going to give us a blacked out version of the grille across here and also the black bow tie. Again, giving you a little bit more aggressive elements, and that's going to continue throughout the rest of the exterior as well. Now, as far as your lighting, you also get pretty premium lighting as standard equipment on all the Traxes. Up top, we have a daytime running light through there. Your actual headlight unit is a standard projector LED. This is pretty good. Definitely lights up fine at nighttime, including the high beam. And then you have a separated turn signal indicator down there below inside of this housing. Next up, we have the wheels, which begin at 17 inches and work their way up all the way to 19-inch alloys for the 2RS. Again, this is the LT, so this one has a 17-inch alloy, but we've got the full gloss black finish, which I think looks a lot better for the Midnight Edition. You've got a little bit of cladding around the outside of the wheel arches, but nothing too much. We have a gloss black finish for our mirrors. And as far as the feature set, you're really not going to get much as standard equipment, but you can option on blind spot monitoring as well as heating like we have on today's example.
Now, for length here with the Trax, you're actually going to be pleasantly surprised by how big this vehicle is despite its price tag. It's 178 inches. It's 11 inches bigger than previous versions of the Trax, and it's actually bigger than more expensive Chevy SUVs like the Trailblazer. Now, in terms of design, we do have blacked out window surrounds. We also are going to have things like roof rails up here at the top to spice up the design. And if you really want a spicy design, you have two new paint colors for 2026, white sand and a Apex red. So those are really going to spice up your overall look. I also really like this cypress green color that we have on today's model. Now, as we head around to the rear design, the Trax really does have a pretty premium look to it overall. So let's break down some of the individual design touches. We have the spoiler right up here at the top. We have our rear window wiper, and let's take a look at our taillights. So our taillights, I will say, are on the cheaper side. They're going to be fully incandescent. That includes your turn signal, your brake light, and your reverse light, although it's not really expected to have a full LED taillight. I would have kind of liked to have seen that on some of the higher end examples. As we drop down here to the lower fascia, no exposed exhaust outlets. Now, everyone nowadays wants all the safety systems on their crossover, and Chevy knows that. They're including 3 out of 4 active safety features standard on every single Trax this year. Furthermore, if you get a higher end example like an LT, an Active, or an RS, you can option on things like adaptive cruise control. But guys, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by what you find on the inside. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then, we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from our long-term vehicle videos to our side-by-side comparisons, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, now let's move to the inside. First, we'll take a quick look at the key. This is kind of the older design Chevy key fob, but you do get a smart entry system with remote start if you get the top trim level or option it on with the convenience package. When you have that option, that means you can just come up to the vehicle, press the little button there, and that will unlock the door, or lock it if it's already locked. All right, and let's check out the interior here. So there's going to be several different kind of variations you can get. Just like with the exterior, Chevy kind of matches the interior theming to the trim level. And as far as the seats are concerned, you're going to begin with a cloth seat. When you move to the LT trim level, which is what we're featuring today, that comes with a cloth and leatherette combination seat. So you'll have the leatherette that's going to trim down the outside edges, and then you have this kind of textured material through the middle. Overall, these are very comfortable seats. They are manual adjusting though. You cannot get power adjustment unless you get the active trim level, and you can get the full leatherette if you get the active or the 2RS trims. But let's go ahead and get inside. Now that we're inside, let's see what the materials are like in one of the most affordable vehicles in America. So over here on the door trim, they are going to have a hard touch armrest portion, so be aware of that. But you have actually a leatherette through here with a yellow color contrast stitch through the center. It's going to be a hard touch plastic through there, as well as your upper materials. But they did apply this texture, which I think adds some visual interest to the interior overall, in addition to more of that yellowish looking accenting. We have kind of a silver trim with, again, a little bit of a texture over there, and then a piano black finish will end our kind of center console finishes. Now we'll fire it up with the push button start. With it all fired up, we can dig into some individual features. So, starting out with the gauge cluster. This is the 8-inch digital cluster. This is included on the LT trim level and above. And with this, you're going to get some additional functions, including the ability to actually change the design. So you can, select a few different designs depending on what your personal preference is. Now, as we move back to the steering wheel, you'll notice that we've got the leatherette wrapped steering wheel. We also have on the convenience package a heated steering wheel. This is included though as standard equipment on your RS trims and your active trims. So when you're kind of comparing the trims to each other, manual tilt and telescoping, of course, as you would expect. Turning over here to our center console area, this is padded, unlike the armrest on the door trim. And then inside of our center console, we have 9 donuts. So that is going to be pretty good for this segment of vehicle. Obviously, these are on the smaller side, but they did give you some good storage inside of there, as well as in front of it with that cubby, your 2 cup holders, and then a large storage cubby in the very front here with the optional wireless phone charging pad available with the sunroof. Moving back to the shifter, just a traditional style shifter, nothing complicated here. You can manually control the shifts with these little toggles. And then you have the little paddles back here, but that's for audio controls. Going into reverse, here is our backup camera. Definitely nice to see that we have active trajectory. Some brands kind of cut that out on their more affordable models, and the resolution is certainly not bad at all for this price tag. You've got an electronic parking brake located back behind there. And then you got a little bit of buttons up there in front of that, including your ability to turn on and off your auto start stop. Now, as we take a look at the center section, the climate controls will be manual on your lower end examples, and then your LT trim and above, that gives you the automatic setting. It's one zone of automatic climate, so you just adjust your temperature up and down with this one. You can control fan speed over there with that knob, and then everything is a nice physical button. Also, part of the LT convenience package is a feature I think a lot of people are going to want to spring for, and that is the heated seats. Pretty rare for this price point, honestly. Rising above, we have a volume knob for our audio system. 4 speakers is what you get as standard equipment on the Trax. 6 speakers is what you get on the mid and upper trim levels. Let's hear what the 6 sounds like. Overall sound quality is fine for this price point. Honestly, it sounds just about the same as the Equinox, which cannot get a branded sound system, and obviously that can cost a lot more than this Trax. Now getting into the infotainment system next, you're going to have two different screens, 8-inch display is standard, and then a larger 11-inch display is what you get on the LT trim and above. 11 inches is pretty impressive in terms of the size for this price point. And as far as the software, we were pretty impressed by this as well. Chevy keeps it very simple. It doesn't really have much additional functions, but the thing you really want to nail is having Android Auto and Apple CarPlay work seamlessly, and we had no issues with either of these systems this week. Up top, the mirror is going to be manually dimming. And as I was mentioning earlier, with the wireless phone charging pad, you've got an optional sunroof. It's a standard size unit, as you can see, and it opens up.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the Trax's rear seat. Now, for those of you that haven't been in this new generation, I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised with how much space you have back here. It's actually a lot of space. Typically, things in this segment honestly have a tiny and very sucky rear seat. That's not the case back here. So we have 38 inches of legroom, 38 inches of headroom, so those are really exceptionally good figures. And I'm 5'9" for reference, and you can see on the screen right now what the ruler is like, but we are sitting at some really impressive numbers in terms of your overall knee room. There is tons of room back here. Also, my feet can easily slide up underneath of the seats, and these seats are actually surprisingly comfortable when it comes to the overall feel of them. Now, the seats themselves do not recline, so that's something to keep in mind. You also don't have an armrest back here, but one thing I really like is the fact that the floor is completely flat across the bottom, so that means even here in the middle, you will have plenty of room for your feet. Now, in terms of features, we have two USB ports that's included on LT trims and above, a little storage cubby down below. And if you look over at the door trim is going to be a hard touch really from the top to bottom. You expect that they do have to cheap out on some of the elements. They've definitely cheaped out in the door trim, but you do have a bit of door storage down in the very bottom. Walking up to the cargo area, we do have a manually opening tailgate across all versions of the Trax. And let's talk about cargo capacity, because that's another area where this car is shining because of how, big they've made this new generation. We are sitting at some really good numbers. So 25 cubic feet behind the second row, 54 cubic feet as a maximum. That places it honestly right in line with some of the largest options, including the Honda HR-V in terms of overall cargo capacity. Speaking of all the rivals, we'd encourage you to check out CarConfections.com/vehicle rankings. This subcompact SUV segment is very crowded and very competitive, and we've actually gone through each option in the segment and ranked them in individual categories depending on what's most important to you. Things like cargo capacity, interior technology, luxury features, powertrain choices, and very importantly, value. And you can sort the list based on the categories that matter most to you to really make an informed buying decision and find the best option in this segment. Once more, that's CarConfections.com/vehicle rankings. Now, as far as the seats themselves, they are 60-40 split folding. There are not any handles to fold them from the cargo area. And now that I've gotten those seats folded down, let's get our cargo length, width, and height figures. This is a Car Confections review after all. As far as cargo length behind Drew's 5'8" seating position, 71 inches of length. That's very good for this segment. As far as behind the second row, 34 inches of length. Let's get the width. 39 inches wide, and then the height, I'm going to have to do a little bit of estimation just because of the cargo cover here, but it is going to be sitting right at around 27 inches in terms of your height. And the load-in height, 29 inches, so that's pretty low as well. Now, underneath of the floor, there is a spare tire, which is pretty rare for the segment. Also, there's a little bit of extra storage space there on the left-hand side. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the 2026 Chevy Trax, and this test drive we'll be discussing quite a lot, as you can see on the screen right now. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and start with a hard acceleration. So that was our run up to 60 miles per hour with the Chevy Trax. So, like we mentioned at the beginning, at the spec dump, this vehicle is available with just one engine option. It's a rather small motor by displacement, a 1.2 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. It has 137 horsepower. I know a lot of people have been commenting in our past videos with the Trax that is, again, a very small displacement, and it is. But, the actual power figures are not
bad at all for this segment and this size of vehicle. Also, it's a pretty torque-rich engine as well. Mason...
162 pound-feet of torque, yeah.
Couldn't remember exactly the figure, but that's really what you feel with this in terms of acceleration, is that torque figure. And actually, you get off the line quite nice. You know, is it exhilarating when you go like full throttle? Not really, but I think in the around town, which is the most important part, it actually feels pretty punchy.
Yeah, absolutely. We've experienced that. We've had multiple Traxes. We've reviewed a lot of them. And honestly, I was very skeptical when I read this powertrain on paper. But go experience it for yourself. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the everyday performance of this. 0 to 60 is around 8.8 seconds, which is actually quite a bit faster than some of the other rivals you may be looking at that are honestly a lot more expensive as well. Things like the Honda HR-V. This is definitely faster than that. And the noise is honestly not bad either. It has a very unique tone to it, but it doesn't really sound unrefined or anything like that.
Yeah, it's kind of a deeper sound, almost at low RPMs, kind of a diesel-like sound. But I think again, it just kind of, it's like that's audible torque almost. You know, like that's where you really feel that torque is when you first get started. Now, one thing that's important to keep in mind about the Trax is the fact that on a weather day, you know, something with some inclement weather, snow, rain, whatever, it's front-wheel drive only. So I think that's a big thing that a lot of people consider when they're shopping in this segment. That's one of the things that gives you a more affordable price tag, but you can't get the all-wheel drive option. If you want all-wheel drive, Chevy does sell you the Trailblazer if you want that instead, but that's going to be a little bit more pricey than this one. The auto start-stop system is pretty smooth. Again, you can turn it off with that little button there next to the shifter. And let's talk about the other major element of the powertrain, which of course is the transmission. We've got a 6-speed automatic transmission. So again, compared to the competition, that's kind of unusual to have a conventional automatic. Almost everybody's kind of gone to the CVTs. So I think a lot of people actually will like this better. This is a smooth transmission. Obviously, it's not a bunch of gears, but I don't think it's a problem with the way the torque and everything works together. It doesn't seem like an issue at all.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and talk about ride quality, because that's something that we were able to experience over the past week, and quite frankly, we're very impressed. They've done a great job with making this Trax actually ride quite nicely, especially here with the 17-inch wheels. We've had, I believe, a 2RS with the 19s back home in Kentucky, and that definitely rode a little bit worse than this, but the ones with the 17s really has quite nice ride quality. I will also point out that really every seat in this cabin is quite comfortable, which is definitely not a given in this segment of vehicle, and you can kind of see that demonstrated as we go over the bridge abutment here, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised overall. Alright, so let's go ahead and get our sound level reading going 55 miles per hour and see how quiet it is. .1 decibels is what we are sitting at as our sound level reading. Now, obviously, just to point it out, yes, it is raining. Unfortunately, we could not get a dry patch of weather during the entire week long that we had this Trax. So, that's the Kentucky weather for you. But we are here in Kentucky. 57 decibels is our sound level reading. Honestly, that is very good for this segment, especially if you factor in, that it is raining. So that definitely makes things a little bit on the louder side. But that's honestly better than some of the other rivals like the Honda HR-V that we tested on dry pavement. Alright, but what is the fuel economy? So what we're rated at is 28, 32, 30 miles per gallon for most of the models. If you get the bigger wheels, it does go down a little bit to 29 mpg. And as Drew mentioned, there's no all-wheel drive, so those are the only two fuel economies. As far as what we've got this week in our real-world driving, we drove about 135 miles of mixed city and highway driving, and we were sitting at 28.7 miles per gallon. So that's going to be actually a little bit under what the EPA is saying, but it's not awful fuel economy, although we do wish, of course, that it was a little bit better given how low the displacement is.
Now, as we come up here to the kind of signature corner, go around it here. Trax is actually a pretty good handling crossover. It feels nice and balanced, good accurate steering. It's lightweight, and the body roll is well controlled. I think Chevy kind of focused on giving this a car-like driving characteristic, because in essence this really does kind of replace in their lineup where they used to have sedans like a Chevy Cruze or something like that. Now you have this as the most affordable option.
Yeah, and let's just go ahead and get into our Slam Dunk and Airball. Slam Dunk has got to be the value. I know we haven't talked about the pricing yet, but this thing is really, truly one of the most affordable vehicles that money can buy. And not only is it affordable, it's actually pretty good, I have to say. Like, typically, if you get like an affordable car, it kind of sucks. There's really not anything in here that really screams super cheap, especially when it comes to exterior and interior design.
Yeah, definitely not things that you probably couldn't put up with. But there are things, of course, that you should think about in terms of, you know, everyday life with this vehicle. One thing that we noticed is kind of not maybe the hugest thing, it just depends on your perspective, but the lack of padding on the armrest, that's something that kind of impacts you every single day, especially when there's pad on the side of the door trim. But then right there where you actually rest your arm is unpadded. Why didn't they put that pad and the leather right there on the armrest? I don't really understand that, but that certainly could have been improved.
And after a week, do we like it better, the same, or worse? Well, I have to say, the entire team can agree that we do like this Trax better. You know, we lived with it before, and this week continued to impress us even as the model years tick by. Now, the reason the Trax has been so popular since it first came out is because of that super affordable price. You can see the full lineup of prices on the screen right now, but you can get a very nicely equipped one for well under $30,000. Now, what we're looking at today is the LT. We also have quite a few options for the LT, pretty much all of them that you can get. The destination is $1,795. So all told, we're sitting at $27,975 as tested today. You can also get, you know, fully loaded examples under 30 grand as well. As far as where it's manufactured, it is going to be in South Korea. And if you're looking to buy one or any vehicle, we'd encourage you to check out carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you should do that is because we have a tool on our website that'll connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use if you plan on doing dealership negotiation. You can find all of that on our website, carconfections.com, as well as things like a monthly payment tool. But what about Chevy's resale reliability and warranty? First up, let's talk about resale value. Chevy as a brand is rated at 54.71% of estimated retained value after 5 years and 60,000 miles, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 20.4%. Now that is actually above industry average for all vehicle brands. However, it is still a little bit less than some of the rivals you may look at, such as Honda, Toyota, or Mazda.
And we also have the Combined Reliability Index, where we calculate reliability with the latest 2026 data. With all that factored in, Chevy is rated above the overall industry average against all other vehicle makes.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about all of that, you can find that on our website, carconfections.com. And when it comes to your warranty, that's also important. 3-year 36,000 miles for your basic warranty, a 5-year 60,000 mile powertrain warranty. You do also get 1 complimentary service visit. And guys, that wraps up our week-long review of this Chevy Trax. Hopefully you enjoyed learning about this affordable model as well as some of the 2026 changes. If you did, we really appreciate you subscribing down below. By subscribing, you're going to get us more cars down here to Kentucky so we can sample them out and provide our impressions after a full week. So please go ahead and do that if you're not already a part of our family. And if you are, thanks so much for your continued support. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.